Radio Pepco Studios in Oklahoma City. You're watching the Press Row. I'm Jenny Carlson here with Barry Trammell. We're brought to you by Papa John's Pizza. You can go online anytime and order your pizza at papajohns.com. It's time to do Inbox, your email questions answered right here on video. Barry, let's get right to it with this from Kent. Kent says, the Thunder doesn't know what it's like in a big city when things go south. Media isn't there to wave a Thunder pennant. I think Kent's referring a little bit to the Russell Westbrook situation.
Yes, and you know what? Here's the truth of the matter is, we have it good, the media here in Oklahoma City, because the NBA just crash landed on top of our heads. And with the Thunder in year 2, we had a good team. In year 3, we had a great team. We've had a great team ever since. So we are blessed in this city. But the Thunder's blessed too, because they don't have a press corps like New York or Chicago or LA, where the horde is massive and some of the coverage is fairly stinging. Russell Westbrook, with some of his antics over the last few years, would have been skewered in ways that we haven't even approached. So I think we both have it good here. And it's good if both sides could recognize that.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think most people in the media on this side of the line, I think we recognize that we do have it pretty good. Guys with the Thunder generally are pretty amenable to dealing with the media. We don't have a ton of problems. And I think that most of us recognize that there are definitely teams where it's a whole lot worse. But yeah, I mean, I think that it would probably be good to look at it from both sides and see that. But I think Kent brings up a good point. You know, I think a lot of people, Thunder fans, readers, listeners, just different people that are consuming the sports media feel like that the media need to be cheerleaders, and that's not, at least in our building, that's not our job. There are definitely some folks that are producing content that are more fan sites, more fan related, and that's probably going to give you the sunny side of the street. But I think from our perspective, yeah, we're not waving any pennants. And would we like to see them win? Yeah, because it's fun to cover a winning team. I say that about the Sooners and the Cowboys when people say, now who are you a fan of? I want them to win every game.
Yeah, every game.
Every game, because that's the best for people who are consuming what we do, and it's more fun that way too. I can't lie about that. All right, back to the inbox from Dell. Dell says, why don't you invite Russell Westbrook to lunch sometimes? That's usually a pretty good way to clear the air.
I guess this is as good a time as any for full disclosure. I have had a standing invitation to Russell Westbrook to go to lunch for literally 3 years. For 3 years, I've been trying to set up, let's just sit down. I just like to get to know the guy a little bit. When Russell Westbrook says he doesn't like me, he doesn't really mean it for this reason. He doesn't know me.
Yeah.
He does not know me. He knows my face. I didn't even know that he knew my name. I still don't know if he even knows my name.
Yeah, I was going to say, he didn't use your
name.
He
didn't use my name.
All right.
He might have said, I don't like your face. That's what he might have meant. And frankly, with a face like this, who can blame him? But I'd love to sit down with Russell and clear the air. Not just clear the air, but I'd like to find out more about the guy because he's fascinating. He's clearly the most fascinating player we've got in Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
Maybe the most fascinating personality and player in the whole NBA. I think everybody would enjoy getting to know the guy a little bit better.
Yeah, and I think that's right. I'm not sure we can ever, and here, this is actually a good lesson, something that I come back to regularly. I think Darnell Mayberry even mentioned it on the Thunder Buddies podcast that popped just a day or so ago, that we really can't know these guys. I mean, we see them in commercials, we see them at events, and they're sort of casting a light or an image that they want to show everybody. But who they are really, I mean, even if you went to lunch with Russell Westbrook, do you really ever dig down and get to know any more professional athletes especially? Although I think it's trickling even into the college level. You don't really know these athletes because they get to show whatever image they want. So keep that in mind when you, if you have kids, I know I do, and you have granddaughters, when you talk about role models and those sorts of things. I mean, I know that's been a topic for a lot of years, but it's absolutely true. We've seen it up close and personal. You've got to remember what you think you see may not be the entire truth. All right, back to the inbox from Jim. Jim says, when Green Bay's Morgan Burnett intercepted that ball and then decided to cowardly, stupidly slide down with almost 5 minutes to go against the Seahawks, he could have prevented Seattle's comeback by at least getting into field goal range?
Well, it's an interesting question in this Green Bay game. Of course, the Packers dominated the game, get the late interception from Burnett, up 12 points. It's about 5 minutes left in the game.
I thought it was over right there, Barry.
I thought it was over, and when
he
went down on one knee immediately, even though he was in open range, he could have run quite a while. I mean, I wasn't critical of that. I thought, good move, protect the ball. But then I saw what happened and what that move instigated. That move by Burnett to take a knee set the tone for the rest of the game, which was this. The game is over in Green Bay's mind.
Yeah.
We don't have to keep playing. We just have to stay out here until the clock runs 0 and we win. Seattle didn't buy that. Green Bay did. And for the rest of the game, total domination. Seattle got the ball 3 more times after that. Bang, 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 3 quick touchdowns. Yep. Green Bay didn't do anything after Burnett's interception and played really shell-shocked after the game got close. So I think Burnett's move set a tone, prematurely celebrating victory.
Yeah, I think that's true, but I wonder if that was a tone that had maybe been struck earlier by Mike McCarthy to some degree. The Packers rolled through the first half, but remember, they rolled through the first half despite leaving some points on the table. The first 2 possessions they had were in close, and they settled for field goals. And I'm not saying you don't take the points once you get to that position. I'm saying you got to punch at least one of those in, for crying out loud. They had a chance to really put a stranglehold on that game. And I got the feeling coming out of halftime that the Packers were really in prevent mode the whole second half, that they felt like just play not to lose, we'll be fine. So while I think that did set a tone for the final minutes, I think the tone had already been sort of set with the way that they were playing the game to that point. And Russell Wilson hadn't done anything. That offense hadn't done anything to give you any belief that they could do what they did at the end of the game. So when that interception happened, I was the same as you, Barry. Thought it was over. And then, obviously, the Packers gave it up and the Seahawks took it away. All right, back to the inbox. Jim says, it appears to me that Bob Stoops scapegoated Josh Heupel and Jay Norvell to protect his brother's poor defensive abilities. The reason OU had such a bad season was their defense and Heupel being given no quarterbacks to work with.
Well, no kidding, I would say. I mean, yeah, no kidding. I actually wrote about this when Heupel was fired. I think Mike Stoops was the guy whose head was on the chopping block, the guy that was his job was should have been under the scrutiny. But Bob's not going to fire his brother, so he had to make a change. He goes to the other side of the ball, redoes the offense. Now, I will say this. OU's offense had some culpability in the poor season, and if Josh Heupel did not have quarterbacks to work with, that's Josh Heupel's fault, because Josh Heupel's charged with recruiting the quarterbacks. So that's no defense. So Heupel is due some criticism, but clearly defense was the problem, the bigger problem in Norman this season.
Yeah, I think that is true. And, when you talk about Heupel and Norvell, I think they were scapegoats to some degree. But I think also if you look at their track record of not recruiting, because I think if you look at the recruits they brought in recruits that a lot of people wanted, a lot of people saw a lot of potential in. But the development of those guys, you alluded to the quarterbacks, but I think it's the same at the wide receiver position. I mean, they've had some good wide receivers over the last couple of years who largely fell in their laps, who were largely developed and finished products by the time they arrived in Norman. Guys like Justin Brown, Jalen Saunders, those guys were transfers. Now, did Jay Norvell have some hand in that? Probably, but I mean, the development of those guys was largely done by other coaches. So I think player development is a real concern, and I think it has been for several years at those positions. So I think that was part of it too. If you want to take a longer view, if you want to look for a little defense of Mike Stoops, which a lot of people don't, but if you want to look for a little defense of him keeping his job, a year ago, that defense was really good. And this year, they had a lot of young guys. They'll be bringing a lot of those guys back. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I guess it remains to be seen. Hey, be sure to stay with the best coverage team anywhere at newsok.com and every day in the Oklahoman.